Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Samma ditthing pahang bhikkhave dvayang vadami. Atti bhikkhave samma ditti sāsavā puñña bhāgiyā upadive pakkhaṃ. Atti bhikkhave samma ditti Ariya anasava lokuttara maggangati. Homage to the exalted one, the worthy one, the perfectly enlightened one. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Dear Bhante, dear friends in Dhamma, today I am going to explain Buddhist fundamentals. Especially, I would like to explain what the Buddha taught in a nutshell. And also at the same time, I would like to explain all fundamentals, main teachings in Buddhism. Here my topic is that Samma Ditti. Have you heard about Samma Ditti?
Right,
yes, right understanding. Samma Ditti is the first step of the eightfold path. Ariya Attangika Magga. Samma Ditti, Samma Sankappa. I think all of you have heard it.
Mm-hmm.
And the base of this sermon is the discourse of Mahachattarisaka Sutta. I think you have discussed in Majjhima Nikaya, the middle length discourses. There are 152 discourses in Majjhima Nikaya, the middle length. I think you have heard it before. However, long time ago, yes. However, again, I am going to explain it. And especially, Buddha says how we develop our right understanding. Buddha says, when we listening to what the Buddha taught, and also if we reflect on according to what we are listening to, then gradually right understanding or Sammaditthi increases. For Sammaditthi, in one side, we should listen to what Buddha taught. At the same time, we should have wise reflection, yoniso manasikara, wise consideration. That is also very important. Here, Buddha says, Samma Ditti or right understanding can be divided into two. Buddha says, Samma Dittim paham bhikkhave dvayam vadami. O monks, I explain Samma Ditti according to two things. One of them is Sāsava puññabhāgiyā upadivepakka. One of Samma Dittis is the understanding of punya or wholesomeness with the understanding of the karmic law. That is the very first level, in the mundane level, in the conventional truth. The second one is that Buddha says, Ariya anasava lokuttara magganga. The second step of Sammaditthi is that the understanding of the Four Noble Truths. The way how suffering arises and how suffering reduces. That is the second part. And in the first level, we should understand the karmic law in the conventional truth, in the mundane level. When we listening to Buddha's message, First of all, we understand how the karmic law acts, occurs. That is very important. Whatever we do with intention, according to our intention, we will have results, same results. If our mind is polluted with unwholesome mental states, the results will be evil. Results are black. On the other side, Buddha says, if you do something with your mind, because of the purification of mind, we will have same results, fruitful results. This is the very first understanding that we receive throughout increasing the Samma Ditti, right understanding. If we have this understanding, we try to overcome negative thoughts, evil thoughts, and also we try to develop positive thoughts. It says in Buddha's message, Sabba Papa Sakaranam, not to do evil, and Kusala Supasampada, developing good deeds. And this is the very first step. And there are a lot of teachings in Buddhism that Buddha has explained how we develop punya or wholesomeness. One day, a householder in Buddha's time named Subha, one day he came to see the Buddha and he asked the Blessed One, there are some differences in the world. When we see the world, there are a lot of differences. What they are? He says that there are some beings who live long. There are some beings who live in short. There are some beings who are very beautiful. There are some beings who are very ugly. There are some beings who are healthy. There are some beings who are unhealthy. There are some beings who were born in higher castes, and there are some beings who are born in low castes. And there are some beings who are very wise. There are some beings who are very mad. He asks that the Blessed One, what is the reason of these differences among beings? What did Buddha say? Buddha says, Subha, the householder, Subha, Buddha says that the reason of these differences is the result of karmic law that he or she has done in his previous lives. That is why they are different. There are a lot of differences that we can see from person to person. That is why Buddha says, there are several things that Buddha advises us to reflect on it again and again, continuously. One of them is, Kammasakomi Kammadayado. You are the owner of the karmas, actions that you do in this life. The karmic results are the dowry of your life. That is your real results in your life. If we have this intention, we always try to develop positive thoughts. When our mind is pure, then automatically our words, actions and thoughts are correct. And automatically, as we mentioned before, supreme blessings happen in our life. What are the supreme blessings that Buddha explained? Practicing generosity is a supreme blessing. Gratitude is a supreme blessing. Listening to Dhamma is a blessing. Discussing Dhamma is a supreme blessing. Understanding the Four Noble Truth is a supreme blessing. And taking care of our parents is a supreme blessing. helping our children and elders is a supreme blessing. Finally, Buddha says, among the world reality, if a person can create an unshaken mind, that is also a blessing, supreme blessings. And why these supreme blessings happen in our life? Because of our purification of mind. When our mind is pure and calm, automatically our actions, our behavior are correct and the results are fruitful. This is the first understanding. Again, Buddha says, practicing wholesomeness, synonyms happiness. He who practices good deeds a lot generates a lot of happiness, Buddha says. And when we think our life, if we can remember a lot of things that we have done as good deeds, when we think those activities, deeds, we can be happy because I have done these kind of activities, then automatically our happiness increases. This is the first understanding. When we have the understanding of the karmic law, we develop 3 meritorious deeds. You know 3 meritorious deeds? That is a very simple Buddhist doctrines that practice in generosity, virtue and meditation. In Pali, Dana, Sila, Bhavana. Dana means offering something to others. We can practice dana in various ways. Offering some material things is a amisa dana. And also giving fearlessness. That is abhaya dana. And also, if we can explain the Buddha's message, or if we can offer some books which consists with the reality, that means Dhamma dana, offering Dhamma to others. We can practice generosity in 3 ways. Amisa dana, abhaya dana, Dhamma dana. Among those 3 things, what is the best one?
Dhamma.
Yes, Dhamma dana. Buddha says, gift of Dhamma excels all other gifts. Sabbadanam, Dhammadanam, Jinanti. And as the result of doing good deeds, we can see some results in this immediate life. You know, some people, they may think that the results will come in next life. That is why they are late to practice some good deeds. They start to practice good deeds end of their life because they think that results will come in next life. But it is not true. Whatever we do in this life with intention, actually we can see a lot of results in this immediate life. That is why Buddha always encouraged us to practice good deeds. And especially, Buddha says, practicing generosity is one of the ways that we can win our friends. If we are greedy, actually it is very difficult to make friends. If we are generous, it means we can make a lot of friends in our life. And also, if we have moral conduct, virtue, sila, that is also one of the reasons that we can make a lot of friends. If we have a good discipline, we are honored in the society. Others respect us when we have moral conduct. If we have good discipline in our speech and behavior, that causes us to make a lot of friends. Especially we can win our close relatives and friends if we practice generosity and virtue. At the same time, Buddha says, if we can practice loving kindness, that is also very important. It belongs to meditation. Dana, Sila and Bhavana. How do we practice loving kindness? We always think that may all beings be well, happy and peaceful. Mentally, we practice loving kindness. Not only we should practice loving kindness meditation mentally, but we should practice loving kindness verbally and physically as well. These three things are very important. Some people may think that we should practice loving kindness only mentally, but verbally and physically they don't practice it. But according to Buddhism, we should practice loving kindness in these three ways: mentally, physically, or behaviorally, and verbally. These three things are very important. According to the discourse of Karaniya Metta, the Metta Sutta, Buddha says, he who wants to achieve the peace of mind should have practiced loving kindness. Until we start to practice loving kindness meditation, we haven't started our spiritual journey. That is why Buddha says, at the very beginning of the path of liberation, we should practice loving kindness, thinking, may all beings be well, happy and peaceful. Again and again we think it. That is one of the concentration meditation techniques that Buddha has explained. As the result of practicing loving kindness meditation, what is the highest attitude of the result of practicing loving kindness? Buddha says, when we meet a person, when we see a person, when we hear a person, when we think a person, we think that person is like my only son or daughter. How beautiful it is. And if we have this highest attitude, actually we can overcome a lot of mental problems, stress in our mind. That is why a lot of psychiatrists recommend us to practice loving kindness to overcome stress. A lot of psychiatrists especially recommend practicing loving kindness and practicing mindfulness for stress management. That is very important. According to three meritorious deeds, Buddha explains the highest merit is that practicing loving kindness meditation or other concentration meditation technique. When we practice those good deeds in our life, we receive a very high result, very special result in our life. What do you think about them? What is the highest result as the result of practicing these good deeds, meritorious deeds? In this immediate life, we will receive a very special result as the result of practicing these three meritorious deeds. What do you think?
Wisdom?
Yes, actually wisdom is the very final result. We will receive another result.
So it's not as far as liberation then.
Especially actually, as the result of practicing these three meritorious deeds, we will receive the noble association. We will meet good friends who explain the Buddha's message.
Kalyana Mitta.
Yes, Kalyana Mitta. When we have Kalyana Mitta, it means we will receive everything. If we miss Kalyana Mitta, noble association, good association, it means we will miss everything. And as the result of practicing generosity, virtue, and meditation, especially loving kindness, we will receive good association. We can make good friends who explain the Buddha's real message, especially in the current society. In the present world, we are so fortunate. We can make friends very easily because the technology is very rich. Even though friends are very far away, we can make a lot of friends if we have these good qualities. When we receive this benefit, the good association, we also should have some inner qualities. What they are? They are wisdom, good attention, active listening, and honesty. These are very important. In the primary level, when we go on the path of liberation, we should be generous, we should have good discipline, and we should practice loving kindness in the primary level. When we reach the noble association, good friends, if we want to get the results from noble association, good association, we should be wise, we should be honest, and we should be gently spoken. We should be gently spoken. We should have good attention what they say. And these qualities are very important. And first of all, we are discussing the importance of practicing 3 meritorious deeds with the understanding of the first level of Sammaditthi. And also, when Buddha appeared in the world, a lot of people in the world, there are some persons in the world who realized the karmic law. But they had realized only some levels in karmic law. Especially, they had realized the karmic law only in the conventional truth, in the mundane level. They had realized actions or karmas in 3 levels. According to Buddhism, there are 4 actions, karmas. What they are? White actions, black actions, black and white actions, and neither black nor white actions. When Buddha appeared in the world, there were some ascetic people in the world. They had realized only first 3 steps of karmic law. Buddha says, there are some actions which are black, that consequence, black results. It means evils. If you do something with impure mind, the results are evil. That is the first step of karma. The second one, Buddha says, there are some actions which are white, that consequence, white results. That is the second one. The third one, Buddha says, there are some actions which are black and white, that consequence, black and white results. These are the 3 karmas that some people had realized in the world when the Buddha appeared in the world. Actually, these 3 karmas happen because of ignorance, delusion. Sometimes you can't believe it. You may ask me that why, Bhante, white karmas happens because of delusion. Even though they practice white actions, wholesome actions, actually they were not away from delusion. Why is that? We can practice some good deeds in this world. We can offer something to others. We can practice loving kindness, thinking may all beings be well and happy. Actually, this is good. This is correct. When we compare wrong views, miccha ditti, but still we are in ignorance or delusion. That is why Buddha says, avidya paccaya sankhara. Sankhara means mental formations happen because of delusion or ignorance. Why is that? What is the ignorance that Buddha means here? Ignorance means when we experience something in this outside world, we think there is someone outside. And also we think that before we experience something, there was something outside. And also we think that after we experience, something will remain in the world. That is the ignorance. Actually, it is true in conventional truth, sammati satya, or in mundane level. But when we compare with supramundane level, absolute truth, actually that is not true. Although we have done a lot of deeds in our life, when we experience something, we think that there is something or some person in outside. It means we are not away from suffering. Why is that? If our mind depends on outside persons or things, when those things change, we may suffer. Because we always think that these things and persons should be in a certain way as we like. According to my interest, they should be in a particular way, we think. When those things and persons change, we may get upset. And also, in this level, even though we have practiced a lot of meritorious deeds as generosity, virtue and loving kindness, still we have some challenges in our life. In the second level, in Sammaditthi, Buddha explains how we overcome these challenges. First of all, we should understand what are the real challenges in our life. What are the challenges in our life? I think last time we discussed it. Buddha says there are 3 big, huge challenges in our life. They are aging or decay, death and rebirth. These are the huge challenges in our life. Even though we have done a lot of meritorious deeds in our life, actually we are unable to overcome these challenges because we are still in the sansaric circle.
What about illness? Is that under decay?
Yeah.
Actually, sometimes we can overcome illness with using some medicines. But these 3 challenges we can never overcome. Sometimes Buddha says, please reflect on it again and again. I am subject to get sick. I am not away from sickness. Buddha has explained. But here especially, Buddha realized there are 3 things that Buddha says, why a Supreme Buddha shines in the world? Why do we need a spiritual teacher and his teachings in this world? Buddha says, these are the reasons: aging, death and rebirth. are the reasons why we need a spiritual teacher and his teachings. But sickness is not there. Because sometimes there are some people we can see in lifetime, they are healthy. Even though they are healthy, they are unable to overcome these challenges. That is why Buddha emphasizes these three challenges: aging, death, and rebirth. However, sometimes we don't believe rebirth, it doesn't matter, but we know that decay or aging and death. That is why Buddha has proclaimed another step of Sammaditthi or right understanding. You know, in Buddha's time, there were some ascetic people who had developed their mind to the maximum level, in the mundane level, reducing attachment or desire and anger. You know, there were some people in that period, time, who had eradicated their lust and anger for more than 84 eons. Even though they had eradicated their desire and anger, they were not successful when the Supreme Buddha appeared in the world. Because Buddha realized, discovered, and proclaimed another defilement, which is delusion. Even though they had realized 5 hindrances, pancha nivarana, they had known only 5 hindrances. Buddha also has explained 5 hindrances, but the unique in Buddhism is that the explanation of delusion or ignorance. After Buddha appeared in the world, Buddha explained 6 hindrances, 6 nivaranas with delusion. What is the delusion that Buddha explains in the second level of Sammaditthi? That is the very important thing in Buddhism. And this is the path that we can overcome aging, death, and rebirth. Buddha explains here that there is a Sammaditthi which helps us to overcome suffering completely. That consists with 4 noble truths: suffering and the cessation of suffering. And here it is very important to understand the dependent origination, paticcasamuppada, or idappacchata, cause and effect. Buddha says, he who understands the dependent origination, paticcasamuppada, sees the Dhamma. He who sees the Dhamma sees the dependent origination. In another way, Buddha says, he who knows the Dhamma sees the Buddha. He who sees the Buddha sees the Dhamma. Paticcasamuppada, Dhamma, and understanding the Buddha are interrelated. He who sees the Dhamma sees the dependent origination. He who sees the dependent origination sees the Dhamma. He who sees the Dhamma sees the Buddha. He who sees the Dhamma sees the Buddha. And in another way, he who sees the dependent origination, sees the Buddha. Understanding of the dependent origination is the way to see the Buddha. It means not seen through our eyes, but seen with our wisdom. And however, it is very important to understand the dependent origination or Paticcasamuppada. Usually, the world is some extremes, in some extremes. What are the extremes? Some people may think that there is a world. Some people may think that there isn't a world. Some think that there is a world. Some people think that there isn't a world. Actually, both of them are extremes. If you think there is something outside, that is an extreme. If you think there isn't something outside, that is also an extreme. In the conventional truth, in the mundane level, when we understand karmic law, we think there is something. When we practice some good deeds, we will have a blissful life hereafter. We can go to the heaven. Actually, that is true only in the conventional truth. First of all, Buddha explained this truth. In the conventional truth, that is very essential. Because all people can't attain enlightenment. Some people are not wise. That is why Buddha in first explained how we receive a blissful life hereafter. That is the foundation of our spiritual life. We also have received this kind of blissful life because of our previous good actions. Whether we believe or not, that is the reality. And when Buddha explains his message, first of all, Buddha pointed out how we receive a blissful life immediately when we die. That's very important. The reason is we don't know when we die. Anytime we can become dead. And that is why Buddha says, first of all, you should make a refuge. You should make a safety in your life. In any condition that you die, you should be sure that I never fall into the hell. And that is why always we should create good deeds, practicing 3 meritorious deeds. In this level, we think there is something outside. If I practice good deeds, the world is pleasant for me. When we practice good deeds with my pure mind, I will receive a good environment. Here, we think there is something outside, but that is also an extreme. Buddha doesn't reject in this very first level because that is beneficial to us. But when we go to the deeper level, the highest level, the absolute truth, we have to keep away that understanding. Now, we see the world wisely. And here, Buddha says, very special action, that there are some actions which are neither black nor white, that consequence neither black nor white results. This is the fourth one of the karmic understanding that Buddha explained. And this level depends on the understanding of the dependent origination. Buddha says very clearly, when you understand the arising of 5 aggregates, you never go to the extreme of nihilism, nothing something. On the other side, if you know the cessation of or reducing or cessation of 5 aggregates, you never go to the extreme of there is something. These both extremes should be reduced in one understanding. What is that understanding? That understanding is the understanding of the dependent origination. When there is something, there is something. When this ceases, this is ceases. When we experience something, the world has appeared in the world. Then immediately that experience ceases. But our ignorance doesn't believe it. When you see something, when someone has blamed you, after experience, still you are thinking that person is outside. A person can blame you once. If you are ignorant, you are blamed again and again. Buddha says, if you want to be blamed, please be blamed once, not second time. If you are wise, you can overcome the second blaming. Secondly, we are blamed by our ignorance. And the first experience ceases immediately. But our ignorance or delusion doesn't believe it. When we think it again, we think that still that person is blaming me. But the first experience has already received. And if we have this understanding, Buddha says, how we understand our life. What is our life? Our life is 6 senses, 6 internal senses and 6 external objects. This is our entire world. This is our entire life. Our eye, forms, ear, sounds, nose, smell, and tongue, taste, body, feelings, mind, mental formations. Without these internal senses and external objects, we have nothing in our life. What is the nature of these objects and senses? These senses and objects are impermanent. What is the meaning of impermanence? Impermanence means not only changing. Impermanence means impermanent. That is impermanence, not changing. What is the meaning of impermanence? It means whatever we experience at the moment, the experience didn't come to the present from the past. The experience that we are receiving at the moment will not go to future from the present. The experience that we receive at the moment arises with the conditions, and when conditions cease, immediately the experience ceases. It doesn't mean that our previous experience doesn't influence the present experience. Actually, the previous experience influences the present experience, and present experience influences the next experience. But the past experience didn't come to the present experience will not go to future. That is why Buddha says, ahutva sambhutang hutva na bhavisati. not been occurred comes to occurrence. Been occurred will not go to occurrence. This is the golden explanation that Buddha explains. This is the nature of the Paticcasamuppada or the dependent origination. If we can understand this reality, again and again we reflect on impermanence. How do we practice impermanence? I is impermanent. Forms are impermanent. Ear is impermanent. Sounds are impermanent. Nose is impermanent. Smell is impermanent. Again and again we reflect on this reality. Little by little we should practice it. Before we practice insight meditation or vipassana meditation, we should concentrate our mind by practicing breathing meditation, loving kindness meditation. We trained our mind to live in the present moment because our mind always goes past and future. We should have an ability to keep our attention in the present moment for a long time. That is beneficial to reflect on impermanence. For concentration meditation, first of all, we should have good discipline in our speech and behavior. That is also very important. And also, Buddha says, very first, we should have the knowledge. Knowledge is very important. Knowledge without practice is useless. Practice without knowledge is blind. That is why Buddha says, I proclaim the cessation of suffering for those who know the path, who see the path. When we start this spiritual path for the liberation, we should understand how suffering arises, how suffering ceases, how suffering arises. When we think that after experience still it is happening, that is ignorance. That is the reason of suffering. That is the cause of suffering. If we can understand after experience immediately the conditions cease, that is the way how we overcome suffering. The path of cessation of suffering. We should understand. We should decide whether I suffer or I overcome suffering. Whenever we think that after experience there is something outside, it means even though we have practiced a lot of meritorious deeds in the mundane level, we are not away from suffering. When our close relatives and friends separate, we suddenly get upset. We are suffering. When we are going to old age, sickness, death, and we get suffering. And if we can understand this reality, whenever we understand this reality, the impermanence, with the understanding of the dependent origination, actually at the moment we have overcome suffering. Why is that? Whenever we reflect on impermanence, like my thoughts are impermanent, my present thought arises at the moment with the conditions, and immediately that thought ceases. When we have this understanding, when we think, when we remember something, our mind is not fixed in outside persons and things, because we look at inside. Now, when you remember something, when you remember your children, your house, your vehicle, suddenly your mind is fixed in outside. Although you think that there is something outside, actually you remember your previous mental formations. For example, please remember your home, your house. You may think that I am remembering the present house, home. It is true? No. Actually, you read your own previous mental formations. But our ignorance doesn't believe it. When you remember your mom, you may think that I am thinking my present mom. But it is not true. You are remembering your previous experience, your previous mental formations which have already ceased. Our entire life is like that. Not only your mom. Actually, when you look at me, when you hear me, when you understand me or my voice, actually the first experience has ceased. We can't reach forms, sounds, smell, or feelings in the present moment. When we understand something which arises because of our six senses, actually the first experience has ceased. Because our mind is very fast, we can't believe it, we can't understand it. We should understand this reality with the conditions in what the Buddha taught. First, we should have confidence in the Buddha's enlightenment. This is the place that we should have saddha, confidence. But it is not a blind faith. It is an understandable confidence. That is why Buddha says, Ehi passiko. Buddha says, come and see. Buddha never says us, come and believe. Come and see. First of all, we should have some kind of confidence in this reality. But when we reach the understanding, the experience is ours. We don't need be confident in what the Buddha taught after we experience this reality. And here, we are explaining the second level of Sammaditthi, the right understanding with the comprehension of the Four Noble Truths or the dependent origination. In short, how suffering arises and how suffering ceases. Suffering arises because of ignorance, and suffering ceases because of wisdom. What is the wisdom? Wisdom means understanding of impermanence. When we understand impermanence, arising and ceasing of our senses, then we are able to understand dukkha, suffering or unsatisfactoriness. When we understand suffering, we are able to understand anatta, egolessness. Understanding impermanence, suffering and egolessness are interrelated. These are the three characteristics, three lakshana. Understanding of these three characteristics based on understanding of the dependent origination. When we have this understanding, this is only the map, only the address. Now we have to start our journey. spiritual journey. What is the foundation of all Buddhist doctrines for the liberation? Mindfulness, or fourfold mindfulness. The contemplation of our body, the contemplation of our feelings, the contemplation of our consciousness, the contemplation of our mental formations. We contemplate on our physical body firstly. For example, when you practice walking meditation, at the same time we can understand, we can contemplate on 4 fundamental elements. They are earth element, water elements, fire elements, wind elements. Our body consists with these 4 things, 4 fundamental elements: Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu. That belongs to contemplation of physical body. And also, when we feel something through our senses, we understand these feelings arise at the moment with the conditions. When conditions cease, immediately the experience ceases. And also we contemplate on consciousness. Our consciousness is also impermanent. Our consciousness doesn't go continuously. Every moment our consciousness or present thought arises and ceases. And also mental formations also arise at the moment with the conditions, and they cease immediately when conditions cease. By practicing this fourfold mindfulness, finally we understand the main reality which happens to our life. In the deeper level, Buddha says, we catch the reality. What is that? Whatever we experience through our senses, 5 aggregates, and Panchaskandha or Panchupadanaskandha arise at the moment. Those 5 aggregates cease immediately. Whatever we see, whatever we smell, whatever we hear, it means these 5 things, 5 aggregates: Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana, forms, feelings, perception, consciousness, and mental formations. These 5 things cannot be divided. These 5 things arise together, cease together. If we can keep our attention in these 5 aggregates, at the moment we are reflecting on impermanence. Buddha says, I proclaim only one thing, which is reflect on 5 aggregates as arising, ceasing, enjoyment, danger, and liberation. For every person who are in any spiritual step, for Pruthajjana or mundane level persons, for Seka persons, trained persons, and for even Arhantas, Buddha says, I proclaim only one thing to practice. And please reflect on these 5 aggregates as arising, ceasing, enjoyment, danger, and liberation. Again and again we think how these 5 things arise, how these 5 things cease, and what are the enjoyment of these 5 things, what are the dangers of these 5 things, how we liberate from these 5 things. Again and again we reflect on this reality about these 5 aggregates. Gradually, our mind is going to depend on insight. Now, when we experience something, when we hear something, when we smell something, when we think something, suddenly our mind is fixed in outside. We look at outside always. If we have this understanding, what happens to us? When we experience something, suddenly we look at inside. When we look at inside, we experience, we understand only arising and cessation of five aggregates happens in my life. For that, first we should have good discipline in our speech and behavior. Then again and again we should practice concentration meditation such as loving kindness. Then we should practice insight meditation, vipassana bhavana. And this is the way that Buddha explained to liberation. This is the action that Buddha explained as there are some actions which are neither black nor white, that consequence neither black nor white result. Only in Buddhism can be seen this reality. This reality can be seen only in what the Buddha taught. And when we reach this understanding, we should know some doctrines. I have given those things in this article. As you are interested in, you can read and you can develop your understanding. I have added here all the fundamentals in Buddhism. If you have the understanding of these fundamentals in Buddhism, and not only so you should remember these things, you should be wise to connect all these fundamentals, main teachings. Even though you read all things, you are not clever, you are not wise. Your wisdom, your proficiency, your skillfulness depends on how far you are clever to connect those all teachings together. First, the triple gem. Triple gem means the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Buddha means not only the Buddha's physical image, but the Buddha's enlightenment. We should trust in Buddha's enlightenment. That is the refuge of the Buddha. Second, the Dhamma. Dhamma means what the Buddha taught. Dhamma has 6 qualities. Swakhato Bhagavata Dhammo. Dhamma is well expounded by the Blessed One. Sanditiko, visible results. Akaliko, immediately effective. Ehipassiko, calling one to come and see. Opanayiko, leading onwards. Pacchattam Veditabbo, personally realized by the wise. It should be personally realized by the wise. These are the qualities of the Dhamma. In short, as we mentioned, Sammaditthi in the mundane level and supramundane level. Understanding of the karmic law and understanding of the Four Noble Truths or dependent origination. Sangha. Sangha means Buddha's noble disciples. If we are confident in these 3 things, Buddha says, our courage automatically increases. Our courage goes to inside through our skin, through our muscles, through our skeleton, the courage goes into with the confidence in these three things. If we haven't effort to practice this message, it means our confidence, our saddha is not successful. By listening to Dhamma, we should be confident in that when we practice this message, I can overcome suffering in this immediate life, not only hereafter. The difference in Buddhism is that other religions explain their liberation, their heaven, after they die. But in Buddhism, we are so fortunate. Our liberation, our heaven, our Brahma realm, everything can be visible in this immediate life before we die. That is the very special thing in Buddhism. And for that, we should get benefits throughout the confidence in the Triple Gem. That is very important. Then 5 precepts, Panchasila. I think you know it. When you practice this morality or virtue or moral conduct, that is very beneficial to this life. Not only hereafter, but this immediate life you can see the result. And again, I have explained there are 3 levels in Buddhism. What they are? Very first level, even though someone doesn't believe next life or previous life, everyone need to succeed in their education and economy. When we are going to succeed in this immediate life, we should be successful in 4 areas according to Buddhist teachings. They are education, economy, health, and morality.